In the second part of tonight's class, we spoke about research and about networking and about how enormously valuable that can be, practically and spiritually on so many levels. If you benefited, subscribe, drop a like, and share with someone who can also. Thank you. Any other ways to help yourself all day rewire your thinking to be so positive about this one issue? We're taking one issue. About this one issue, how can you be so positive about it? Again, a big challenge is remembering.
For me, it will work when I put tzedakah to pray about this person. And when I read Psalms, I will remember to put this positive image every time.
That's a very, very good idea. What Menucha is saying is link it to, it sounds from what she's saying, to an action she already does in this area, which makes total sense because we're picking a big area. We probably give tzedakah for it, say Tehillim for it. So very realistic what she's saying. So at least those are like the anchors. When you're giving the tzedakah, remember that positive vision. When you're saying the Tehillim, remember that positive vision. That's a very, very, very good tip. Very good tip. That sounds very realistic, and I think it's going to work. Anyone else? Anyone else? Any other ideas of how we can remember to rewire our thinking, remember to be in this positive space? So I liked Miriam and I liked Menucha's. I felt they were both very true, very realistic. For Miriam's, you could say, well, I don't always have a choice. But even just remembering that is like, at least as much as you can, connecting or distancing, protecting or opening yourself up. And what Menucha is saying, well, maybe I don't give the tzedakah or say that to him. Great! Just give me a new idea. It is a big issue. You should give charity, tzedakah every day for it. You should say psalms, say Tehillim every day for it. And just as you do so, remember that positive vision, thought, space you're putting yourself in, and just like go in there again. Go in there again. I like both those suggestions. Very good. Anyone else? Any other ideas?
I have a question. Can I ask?
Sure.
So before, I have many tzedakahs, and before, like I start my day and I pray for different things when I put money. But then I heard one rabbi saying when it's a big problem, it's better to ask Hashem about this big problem, like instead of asking for different small problems. Just concentrate on one big thing instead of asking for other stuff. What's your opinion?
Okay, I was going to say, I think that's an opinion issue. I wouldn't follow that opinion. I mean, it depends what situation. You know, if it's Yom Kippur or something and it's a very special moment, like Ne'ilah, you have a few minutes, or the blowing of the shofar, Rosh Hashanah, you know, times when we know are very, very auspicious. If it's the Megillah reading on Purim, you know, the Megillah reading on Purim, you're supposed to the whole time pray. It's a hugely powerful time. Blowing of shofar, hugely powerful time. Ne'ilah of Yom Kippur, hugely powerful time. So if it's like a critical time like that, I would pick like one or two or maximum 3 things, because I want to stay very, very focused. I'm not going to go down my litany of like 15 things or 20 things. I'm going to focus on the most critical things, and I just want to use out the time with those things. But if you're talking on a daily basis, no, I would ask God everything. And I know some are bigger and some are littler, but I wouldn't have this fear of like, God, if I'm asking you 15 things, you'll give me 5 of the little things, but the critical things you're not going to give, but you're still going to say, I gave you 5. What are you complaining? I don't look at God that way. I don't look at him that way. I feel he knows what's big, he knows what's little, but what's little is also important. But that doesn't mean he's giving it to me instead of something big. And I think also God's credit card is limitless. You know, and it might sound like a trivial way to put it, but I guess it's how my mind processes. You know, when we're looking for a favor from another person, we're sometimes careful because we don't want to waste our favors. I'm sure coming from Russia, you had that experience far more than I had here, of like people that had a certain power and they could give you certain favors, but you're not going to waste the favor. You're going to use it when you really need it. And of course, in America as well, certain people have certain positions and they could be very helpful. You're not just going to ask and ask and ask. You're going to ask when it's really needed because you don't want to waste it and then not have it when you need it. That's how we treat people. That's not how we treat God. God is not like that. His love for us is limitless. His care is limitless. His understanding of our situation is limitless. And so many times in my life, I see him doing things that I literally say to myself, why did he bother? It's not so big in the scheme of things. Just recently, I was remembering a whole story with my son, who's now 30, when he was probably like 12, whatever, something happened, the whole situation, and he didn't have a summer plan. And, like a 12, 11-year-old boy, no summer plan, and whatever, I'm not going to the whole backstory why, but, it was sort of a crisis came up. And my aunt had connections with this summer camp, and we reached out to her, and she like laughed and said, oh my gosh, people months ago asked me, they were completely closed months ago. No way, no way, no way. We didn't know what to do. And we heard about a camp in Israel. Well, he didn't speak Hebrew at that time. He was like 11, 12 years old, 11 turning 12 in the summer. And we thought maybe we should send him, but he doesn't speak the language. And we wrote into the Lubavitcher Rebbe. He wrote into the Lubavitcher Rebbe about it. He got a very interesting answer. One letter was talking about like not going to a place where you don't speak the language. And the other one was something along those lines. And the other one was talking about going to summer camp. So we said, okay, that's it, Mendy. It's going to work out. You're going to go. No clue how, but you're going to go. And that it was right before camp was supposed to start. And Sunday, I took my daughter, who was going to camp. On Monday, she was flying to buy camp supplies. And I took Mendy as well. This is the days before I had a cell phone. And we went shopping, and I got for him and I got for her. Very positive, as we're talking about. It's all going to work out. It's all going to work out. We came home, hours later, cell phoneless in those days, no leash. And my husband's like, your aunt's been trying to reach you all day. Call her. And I call my aunt, and wonder, miracles of miracles. You will never believe this. One spot just opened up in that camp that's been closed for months and months and months. And Mendy has it. No problem. Monday, he was on a plane with his sister. Went to camp Monday night. Very nice story. I was just thinking about it recently, and I was really feeling exactly this idea, like, it was so nice of God. In the scheme of things, why'd he bother? So to speak. I mean, obviously it's nice and obviously it's important, and he had a very good summer instead of a not good summer, but summers come, summers go. He literally made a miracle. He literally created a spot where there was no spot. God doesn't work that way. God doesn't say, oh, this is small. I don't really need to do this for you. It's not such a big deal anyway. You're just upset about it now because you're a small person. You're not going to remember about it in a few years. God doesn't work that way. So when I'm asking, I ask everything on my list. And I give charity for everything on my list. And I say Tehillim, I say Psalms for everything on my list. So God gets lots of charity from me all day long, small amounts, like nickels. God gets lots of Psalms from me. And I know that my big things and my little things, he will honor. And I don't have a fear that because I'm asking for little, he's going to give me the little and cheat me on the big. Or why bother asking for the little? All my energy, all my merit should go for the big. God doesn't work that way. God's love is much broader than that. His understanding is much broader than that. And we trust he's going to give us the little, and we trust he's going to give us the big. And if we want the little, we ask for it. If it's worth putting the charity into, if it's worth putting the Psalms and Tehillim into, that means it's meaningful to us. And therefore we ask for it. I was thinking, I had this, before the summer this year, I had this whole trauma. What's going to be with my son Beryl? Again, long story, not worth going into, but his summer plans fell apart, and then I tried this, and I tried this, and I tried this, nothing worked. And I kept pushing God on this point. I kept pushing God on, you know, he has to have a good summer for his sake, for my sake, for my sanity, his growth, my ability to breathe. And I kept giving the charities, saying the Psalms, and thank God, it wasn't any like, you know, bolt of lightning type miracle, just sort of things worked out. So again, you know, in a month, summer's over. Why did I waste my energy on that? I'm not scared that it's taking away from other merits. I know that's not how God works, and I'm going to ask for the big things, and all the things as they come up, I'll feel free to ask for as well. But again, if it's like a critical time of year, like the blowing of the shofar, like, you know, the Elah of Yom Kippur, then I would just focus on the big things because it's a small amount of time, and I just want to keep focusing on those very critical things. And also because it's a pressure time, I just want to have a few things in my head so I don't like lose something in the process. I want to stay very, very, very focused. So long-winded answer to your question, but it's a very important question, and that's why I took the time to answer it like that. Anyone else has any ideas, going back to what we were talking about? Anyone else has any ideas of ways to remember the positive energy, the positive message, the positive vision? Okay, so that was the first idea. Believing it's going to happen, being positive, forming a message, forming a vision, and keeping it in your head as much as you can to rewire your thinking. That was one. Two, on a very practical note, again, for some issues it's not relevant, for some it is, research. You think you know it all, but maybe there's a road out there you don't know. Keep yourself open. Don't shut down and say there are no options. Sometimes there are options. If you're researching an issue, what do you normally do to research? What would you normally do if you were researching something? Just to give people ideas. So I'm just going to jump back to the idea of the Psalms because someone just asked about the Psalms. What Psalms do you say? So in general, if it's for a person, like for a person's health or a person's physical, emotional, mental well-being, or for success, if they're doing something, maybe they're in the middle of trying to buy a house, or, you know, getting a new career, you know, if you're praying for someone, usually we say the psalm associated with their age, which means your age is what we would call your age plus one. Meaning if right now you say you're 50, in Jewish thought you're 51, because when you say you're 50, that means you completed 50 years. So from the next day, you're already in your 51st year. Sorry for aging anyone. So therefore, you would say Psalm 51 for yourself, or for your husband, or for any person in the world that you're trying to help. That's usually specific to the age. Also, I would say 4 other general, I mean, there's more and more and more, but Psalms we say to help would be Psalm 20, Psalm 23, Psalm 121, and Psalm 150. So if I had a short list, I would say those 4, 20, 23, 121, and 150. And then again, if it was for a specific person, maybe it could be for you, and then you say your own psalm, or, you know, it could be like for the world, like save the world from Corona or something. But if it has to do with a person, I would also say the person's psalm, which is their age, or as we would think of it, their age plus one, in terms of psalms. Going back to the idea of research, Google, Facebook groups, WhatsApp groups, there's a lot of information there. It's not all correct. Obviously, you have to sort of scan it. And some groups are sort of negative or pessimistic. So you don't want to be in those groups because, as Miriam said, you want to be with positive people. Sometimes there's things that we don't think of, we don't think it's worth pursuing, and you can really get a lot of information. Now again, some situations it's not an information issue. Some situations it is. And networking helps, information helps. That actually would be like my third idea, is networking. I just had, very personally, I just was in Florida, and I met a former student who has a special needs child several years. She's my student, but her special needs child is several years older than mine. And she shared with me, she had done a lot of work with her child. And she shared with me all the stuff she said so much didn't work. And she shared with me the 2 methods that did work from all the things she tried. And she invested enormous effort in this child. And I felt so grateful that I could piggyback on all her work. I mean, she spent years, efforts, money, trying all these techniques. And I could just say, oh, okay, these were the 2 that worked the best. Great. I'm going to see if I can find them, and if I can find them in Chicago, and if they work for my son. And so it's great to speak with other people in your situation who very possibly have tried things you haven't. And you both can share. I mean, I also put a lot of effort and work and research in helping my child. And I'm always free to share with other people everything I've done and what's worked and what hasn't worked. I could spend hours telling you things you have no interest in hearing. Maybe I think it's going to help you. So one great advantage of networking is information. Information. I share my research, you share your research. I have definitely benefited this year. I benefited very much from something someone else knew that I didn't know in terms of helping my son. And it was very beneficial. I found out because someone knew and she shared with other people. So freely share the information you know with people in your situation, freely receive from other people. Another reason why networking is really good is support. Even if you're in a situation that's difficult and you have family that gives you support and you have friends that give you support, but they don't always get it. They're not on the inside. When you're talking with a person who's on the inside, who was widowed like you, or divorced like you, or childless like you, or has a special needs child like you, whatever the situation is, when they're on the inside, they can say very few words, and those words are very supportive because they really, really know what they're talking about. So that's a second really wonderful advantage of networking, to get that support from people that really understand, because they're in a similar situation. You both have a child who's ill, you both have a child who has mental illness or physical illness, or who's going in a road that really scares you or is difficult for you to accept. It's so much easier when you're with someone who also is going through that. That's the second great thing of networking. 1 is the information, 2 is the support. The third really great value in networking is you can both pray for each other. There are so many, many stories of people that pray for each other and both see their salvation. Now, obviously, you're not limited to praying for people with your problem. You can pray for anyone. And God really, really, really appreciates it when his children pray for each other. It's very powerful. I have a regular little prayer group with other women, and we just pray for each other every single day. And I know it's something that's very, very, very special to God, that his children are praying for each other. It's just so precious to him that his children care about each other like that. So that's something that's very powerful. And again, you don't have to wait for someone in your situation. You could have this issue, she could have this issue, he could have that issue. You could all pray for each other. But when you're praying for someone in your situation and you're praying for them to get what you want for yourself, it's very special prayers. So that's a third amazing outcome of this networking and connecting to people in your situation: the information, the support, and the prayers. They're all very, very powerful. They really help a lot. And it's really all aspects of networking. I'm sure other people have had this situation where they've networked and they've gotten really good help. I had this actually very recently. I mean, it wasn't recent, but it was recent. This was in terms of Beryl, in terms of my special needs child, where I always try to share whatever I know, and I always am open to receiving. So this was in 2018 or before. Someone I very slightly knew who also had a special needs child told me about this organization in Chicago, has this like respite program at night. I'm not going to go into the story, but I called them, I spoke. I thought I said no and I wasn't interested. They thought I got on their waiting list. This is like at least 4 years ago. And literally in like May, this woman reaches out to me from this organization and says, oh, your son came up from the waiting list. I'm like, waiting list? What are you talking about? I spoke to you over 4 years ago. It took 4 years for him to come up from the waiting list. That makes no sense. She's like, I don't know, whatever happened. Obviously, it makes no sense. And obviously, other people have joined since. But this is when I needed it. Because again, as I mentioned before, I knew what was going to happen this summer. So suddenly this respite program was amazing. And it is amazing. And he goes and he loves it. And it's a wonderful program. And if they had offered it to me anytime in the interim of these 4 years, I probably would have said no. So it was all God's hands that right now when I need it is when they offered it. So it's amazing, the hand of God, the whole story. But bottom line, I found out about it because of networking with another woman. So have any of you had that situation where like something you would never have realized that really helped you came out through networking with people?
Many times.
Many times.
Many times. I'm just to this, I always share, and I like to share my experience, and I always thirsty for somebody else's experience in specific topic. So I'm constantly, I have close friends, I have not very close friends, somebody who I just meet. I always talk and I get information and I share mine.
Great.
And it's extremely helpful. And regarding, you said prayers, this is very good. I've heard about this. There's circles online when you have prayer group, women prayer. I'm hesitating to get into this area. Let's say if, like our group, what we have now, if we would do this, at least people, but just to be open to somewhere on the internet or even on Facebook. I don't know. I don't feel comfortable.
So I meant like a small group. Like I totally hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
So the group I have is just like 3 women.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Like more than that, I think would be too many. Because for me to have in my head every day like 10 women's issues will be like a lot beyond all my other issues. So I think like 3 is like a good number. Like you could find 2 friends. It could be 1 friend. It could be you and 1 other person. It doesn't have to be more than 1 other person. Lots of miracles have happened when 2 people pray for each other. Mm-hmm. And then people have groups. Like I have a friend who was looking for a house and she couldn't afford a house and she couldn't find a house. And she made a little prayer group of, I don't know how many, maybe 5, 6 women, all in the same boat, all praying for each other to find houses. And thank God most of them found. And the same woman had been in a prayer group earlier when she needed a child. And everyone in that group was answered. Every one of those people had a child. So sometimes a group could be larger if you all have the exact same issue, because then it's not so burdensome on your brain. Right. But if like it's just you and friends and you each have your own things and every week you're going to change what you're going to pray for, then I think more than like 2 people will be just like too much to handle.
So maybe I'll share. I was thinking about maybe I or anybody else wants to share in private text to you what they would be liking to pray for, and then maybe you'll connect us.
Or maybe put it on our group. If anyone want to join the prayer circle, to direct message me, and then if 2, 3 people join, I can share to everyone.
Exactly, and you connect those people who have same ideas of prayer,
or just all want to pray for other people. So maybe if you could put the message on the group, and then I'll make the connection. Because you don't, a prayer group like that, you're not really looking for a lot of people, because you're sincerely praying for each one of those people every single day. So you want a small amount of people, but the sincerity of the prayers, I think it's very, very meaningful to God when people pray for each other. It's very precious. Just like if we imagine us and our children, and they're caring about each other and wanting each other's needs to be met. It's very touching. It's very meaningful. So Miriam said she's had loads of situations where networking helped. I imagine she's not the only one. I imagine I'm not the only one. I imagine it's a technique we use. And again, the knowledge, the support, and the prayers. So maybe people could try to think now of someone they could reach out to who's in a similar situation as they are. And they could give to that person. They could possibly also receive, because every person has what to receive from. Maybe just think in your own head. Now we're focusing on someone in your situation. If you know someone in your situation, and try to think now of someone that you could give to and get from and network with, possibly pray for, get support from, and bottom line, give and get information from. That could be very, 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 very valuable. Okay, so hopefully people thought and came up with someone and can give and help and can gain, and that helps too. All right.